Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Chapter 10. Seeing that it's just post-Halloween, there's a couple of things I want you to, a couple numbers to ponder before we get started. First one, 35 million pounds. Next one, 3.4 pounds. What do they mean? Think about it. We'll get back to it at the end of the presentation. All right, if I can remember. All right, so Chapter 10. What are the major threats to forest ecosystems? All right, so right now in class we are doing the, we're going outside, we're measuring trees, we're calculating the carbon in them, and then we're looking at, next class, how some of the other biomes on the planet sequester carbon as well, and that's going to take us into climate change. So trees, forested ecosystems, very important in our battle against climate change. So here we go. The makeup of forests. Old growth forests are undisturbed by humans or natural disasters for the last 200 years. Okay? Most of the forest in the United States has been harvested at some point in the United States past, but as long as it's been over 200 years, it's considered an old growth forest. It's 36% of the world's forests. Second growth forests, forests as a result of secondary succession, which we talked about earlier this year, due to humans or natural disasters, meaning we went in there and clear-cut an area and then just walked away from it and let it eventually reforest itself as it went through secondary succession, or there was a hurricane or tornadoes that ripped through an area, maybe a volcanic eruption that covered an area in lava, right? They occupy 60% of the world's forests. And then tree plantations, managed tracts, harvested and replanted in cycles. It's only 4% of the world's forests. So these are areas where it's just a farm where they plant trees, right? We do this a lot in the southeast United States because we can grow pine trees here. And if you remember and recall from the activity that we're doing right now, we're going out and measuring the carbon in trees. That reading told us that in the southeast, our pine forests can sequester about 3.8 billion tons of carbon a year. And a lot of that is some of these tree plantations where we grow these pine trees for use in paper products, wood products, etc. These are some pictures of what we call old growth forests. And this is, look at the size of the trees. Think if you can come up with the name of these forests. This is indeed the Redwood Forest out in California. If you've never been to the Redwood Forest, go out there at some point in time. Take the Pacific Coast Highway down the Pacific Coast. It's beautiful, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. The trees are massive. It's hard to see this one, I'm sure, because of the glare, but that's General Sherman. It is one of the most massive redwood trees in existence. And the other ones, you can tell, I mean, they literally hollowed out part of this tree so you could drive a car underneath it. When I was there, I did just that. I went through, this one fell over, so this tree's actually dead. The tree that I drove through was still alive, and they cut a chunk out of it so you could drive through it. And the tree's so massive, you can drive through this thing and it's still alive. Crazy. Some of them get up to 285, 300 feet tall. Diameters, 25 foot diameter. That's crazy. These are tree plantations. Oh, let me go back, sorry. You can see same exact tree, very uniform planting, rows, boom, boom, boom. And same thing right here, these are some pine trees that are going to be taken down. I don't know, maybe they're 5 years old at this point, harvested usually at 15, just straight rows. Come on, there you go. So importance of forests. Number one, it stores CO2. This was the carbon storage of our lab that we just completed, right? They store it in their bark, in their roots, in their tissues that make up the trunk and the branches and the leaves. They reduce soil erosion and nutrient loss. How do they reduce soil erosion? They hold on to the soil. Their roots spread out and grasp onto the soil and reduce erosion. Nutrient loss, they're holding on to the nutrients, right, in their tissues. And when that tree dies, right, it will fall to the earth, it will biodegrade to return those nutrients to the soil for other things to use. Absorb and release water. It's called transpiration, right? The roots will absorb and suck up water that's on the ground and in just underneath the ground's surface, and it'll pump it up through the roots, up to the leaves, and then it transpires out into the atmosphere. Without those trees, we end up with flash floods, mudslides. Think about California, where they've taken down a lot of the trees on the slopes where they build their homes. Now, whenever they have massive rainstorms, they end up with floods and with mudslides because there's no trees to absorb that water. And they provide numerous wildlife habitats, of course. And this poor boy is looking at an area that used to be forested. Notice the trees are gone. He's saying, trees suck, ha ha ha. And because now there's nothing to process this water, the ground has dried so much that it's just actually cracked and broken apart. Unsustainable logging is a major threat to forests, of course, right? Because if we're harvesting lumber faster than the forest can replenish it, we're going to run out of forests. So we have to build roads to get in there. And if you remember back to when we discussed habitat fragmentation, then that breaks up and dissects the habitat and makes it more difficult for the organisms to move throughout the habitat to sustain themselves. Which leads to the next one, fragmentation. We lose biodiversity. Once we start cutting down all of the trees, then we're losing not only just the tree that we're cutting down, maybe the epiphytes that grow on the trees, some of the mosses that grow on the trees, the fungus that has a symbiotic relationship in the root system of the trees. We're losing the animals that may eat the acorns or the other nuts that are produced by the tree. Some of the insects that live inside of it that bore into the wood. So we lose a host of organisms. And as we take down, especially when we clear cut, as we take down huge areas of trees, we're making the forests that are remaining, we're making them weaker, which means they're more susceptible to invasive species that might be moving in, and to diseases that might already be there, that might move in as a result of their weakness. And then, of course, mining operations, same thing. We go in to mine an area, so we have to cut down a bunch of trees, bring in, build roads, etc., and it does all those things. So logging methods. First one, selective cutting. This is the best method, right? Because we're deciding what trees to take down. And if you remember back to, again, the activity that we were just doing, the difference between carbon storage and sequestration was that sequestration is the rate at which carbon is removed from the atmosphere. So we said that young trees can sequester carbon much faster than older trees. So when they're selective cutting, they want the most bang for their buck anyway. So they probably want the older trees, right? So they can get 2x4s and 2x8s out of it. By selectively cutting the older trees that aren't growing as fast anymore, we can then replant with small younger trees that will grow. They have a quick growth rate when they're young, and they can sequester and pull out lots more carbon dioxide than the older trees. What else? Clear cutting is evil, and also the way that Satan logs trees. You remove all the trees in an area. Right here, you can see them just coming through and doing it very methodically, cutting in angles. This one you see, which is ironic, they've made a road come in, and this is one of their main roads into the area they're harvesting, and then all these sub-roads to harvest. And what ended up happening is their road and deforestation area looks like a tree. Ironic? Huh? So while removing all the trees, you're going to increase flooding. Remember, because there's not enough trees to then process the water. We're going to lose the soil nutrients because now we've just got dirt there. So every time it rains, it's going to carry with it the topsoil and all those good nutrients. It's going to dump into a river somewhere, and it's going to flow out into the ocean. And with the loss of the soil nutrients, you get the soil erosion. Strip cutting is a type of clear cutting, but you do it in small, thin sections, right? And then you skip a spot. You can see the light green is where they clear cut, and then they leave an area of forest or trees, and they clear cut alongside of that, and they alternate it, right? And then they leave the growth in between, and then when we get new growth coming up where they just clear cut, then they'll go back and they'll alternate. Now they'll cut the other trees that they initially left. So you get this very striped effect. So what are things to worry about as far as our trees? So first off, fire. So why fire? Fire, we have, because of Smokey the Bear especially, we stopped for decades any fire that got started because homes were there. And that made sense. But what we didn't realize is that fire is a normal part of the ecosystems. And if we did not allow fire to go through there, then you're letting a bunch of fuel, wood, branches, shrubs build up on the floor of the forest. So then next time when there is a fire that we cannot stop and control, these fires have so much wood built up from over decades of us stopping any fire that they just burn and burn huge and burn hot, and they destroy the trees because they usually end up as crown fires. Crown fires are so big and hot they get to the tops of the trees and kill the growing part of the tree. Surface fires, if we allow fire to move through areas every couple of years like it's supposed to, especially in Florida, 2 to 3 years we should have a fire in all of our forests. There's not a lot of fuel on the ground. They burn quickly, pass through, and they don't kill the tree. The trees are adapted to that kind of fire. So without those fires, you end up with insects, right, that take over. Because one of the things that manages the insects and the diseases is the fires. And then, of course, we have to worry about climate change, right? Climate change, we have climate change moving through. It's getting warmer. It is actually killing some of the trees that are adapted to the cold climates. Those types of trees are dying and giving way, of course, to other trees, but it's just completely changing the entire ecosystem as the climate continues to warm. So we will probably lose our coniferous forests in the tundra, and that will give way to some of our hardwoods that we see in temperate deciduous forests. Those will expand. And maybe in the long run that won't necessarily be a bad thing, but we are losing those habitats that are being displaced as the climate gets warmer. Deforestation, what is it? It's the removal of large expanses of forest for agriculture, for settlement, or for other uses. We've lost 46% of the world's forests in the last 60 years. Yearly loss of 50,000 square miles of rainforest every single year. And 40% of the remaining forest will be logged in the next 20 years. It's awful to think about. Trees are thought of as the lungs of the planet, right? They suck in CO2 and they breathe out oxygen. They provide us with glucose and all these habitats. So it's going to be a shame to lose them all. Tropical rainforest. Indonesia will have lost 99.4% of its original forest by 2022. Primary causes of deforestation is products for developed countries. That sucks. Secondary causes of deforestation is slash and burn for agriculture. So what kind of products are we talking about? Furniture, guitars, wood for boardwalks. Believe it or not, the government of New York is the largest consumer of rainforest wood for the boardwalks along the coast of New York City. I know, crazy, right? And then here we have been growing lots and lots of corn and soybeans. And then when we started producing ethanol with corn, we stopped producing soy. Well, soy is a huge food stuff that's used to feed cows. And just because we stopped producing it, it didn't mean that our desire for it as a food for our cows went down. So there's still a huge demand for it. So the majority of the countries that picked up the slack and started producing soybeans were third world countries who are surrounded by beautiful rainforests. So then they started clearing the rainforest to grow soy so they could sell it back to us here in the States so we could feed our cows. And that is the cycle. And that is the end of 10.1. So the 35 million pounds number, that is the amount of candy corn that was sold this last Halloween. 35 million pounds of candy corn. No one even likes candy corn, right? It's weird. And then 3.4 pounds was the quantity of candy that the average American will consume during the month of October in preparation and during Halloween. 3.4 pounds. That's a lot of candy. All right, thank you for stopping in.